the Anyone But Cam Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome to an episode of the Anyone But Cam Fantasy Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts and one of your commissioners. My name is Frankie, and sitting across the internet from me is Cam. Cam, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
Well, we're one quarter of the way through the San Francisco 49ers Green Bay Packers game, and Aaron Rodgers has thrown, well, let me just pull up these stats for everyone just so they get alive how I'm feeling. Aaron Rodgers has thrown 6 completions, and 3 of them have gone to Davante Adams. He's thrown for 76 yards and 1 touchdown. 51 of those yards and 1 of those touchdowns has gone to Davante Adams, and I am playing against Davante Adams, so I'm tilting.
This is a live tilt montage for all of you LCS fans out there. Yeah, that sucks to suck. It's hard for me to feel bad for you because I have Davante Adams in our Dynasty League, in which I'm currently crushing Dylan in with just this one player. But yeah, it's
I just saw Marquez Valdez-Scantling drop an easy pass to convert a first down, so now they're never going to throw to him again either, so that's not good.
We will talk about him later. But yeah, thank you all for joining us, for listening in to this new episode 9 of season 3. And Cam, I got to start us off. It's been a wild couple of days, and today things have really climaxed around our league in the country. I have to hit the breaking news alert. You hear that? We had an absolutely blockbuster trade today, Cameron. Jake acquired $10 of fab from Lassie in exchange for $10 of his own fab. Unprecedented. Cam, I don't know about what the legitimacy of this is. I might declare a fab recount. It just, at this hour, you can't trust what the media is telling you.
I think that Russia may have gotten in on some of this fab dealing, and just to be safe, we should kick both of them out of the league for just this one season, but still have 6 playoff spots. No internal desire for that from me, just pure whatever's best for the league, which is what I just said. Kick them both out for this season.
Yes, we need to reclaim the moral center of this league, which they've clearly violated.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's move on from that before we fall too down into that rabbit hole. Let's go over the waivers for this week, Cam, to start us off. And let's just have you start us off, because you have a note here that I'm finding to be, it hits a little close to home.
Yeah, that's because it's very much directed straight at you, Frankie. Are you aware that you are in an abusive relationship?
Yes.
This is an intervention with me and all the podcast listeners out there, because you once again picked up Ben Roethlisberger. Now, I don't know how many times you and Ben have done this dance. Frankly, I don't want to know. However, you just dropped $15 of fab for him. It is Baker Mayfield's bye week. But, Frankie, Ben Roethlisberger? I mean, he hasn't scored. I mean, he's been fine, but 21 points, 22 points is his maximum. He's done that twice. He plays Dallas. They can just run the ball the entire game. It's just, you keep running back, and I know you think you can fix him, but Ben Roethlisberger's gone, dude. It's over.
He's been gone for a very long time. Yeah, but he's playing Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas. How did Carson Wentz do against Dallas? I don't think it was very good, because they didn't need
Carson
to do
Wentz,
good.
Okay, all right. Well, let's not talk about Wentz here. We're talking about Ben. Yeah. Yeah, I dropped some money. He seemed like the best streaming option this week, and I'm in a must-win game. What can I say?
I mean, at least you're not Dylan, who is also in an abusive relationship with Cam Newton, but this goes back much further, all the way back to last season. Dylan picked up Cam Newton again this season. He did a decent last week, getting 18 points, but Frankie, do you know Cam Newton's passing touchdown to interception ratio on this season?
It's not great. It's probably like 2 to 10 or something.
He has 7 interceptions for 2 passing touchdowns.
Okay, 2-7. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good. But he's starting for Dylan because he's playing the Jets, so I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
And Dylan has no fab, so it's not like he can really pick anything. Other waiver stuff. Jordan Reed got picked up because George Kittle, he's hurt. So the big question there is, will Jordan Reed be able to survive playing a football game in the year of our Lord 2020? I wouldn't put money on it. And Lassie, on the first day of waivers, he dropped Elmat to pick up someone, but he also dropped someone else to pick up Dez Bryant. And then the next day, he dropped Dez Bryant to pick up Elmat. So there's more shady stuff going on from the Lassie corner. Like, is Lassie a bot? I don't know.
I mean, that seems like classic Lassie behavior. I don't know what your suspicion's coming from.
I mean, all I know is that he ended up having the same person on his team that he had before waivers, but he lost $1 of fab doing it. So congratulations, Lassie.
Alrighty, and those were the biggest news from the waivers this week, at least so far. The rest of the week is still yet to play out. But let's go ahead and jump into some highlights from last week. We'll start talking about the matchup of the week from last week, which was, of course, Levi versus Tyler. Ended up not being a super close one. And yeah, I mean, the story we already talked about at the top of the show. It comes up every show. Devontae Adams, 3 touchdowns off 7 receptions, only 53 yards, but who cares?
Yeah.
Other big performers. I mean, Matty, I said a good enough week for him. Montgomery and Rieger both came through, but obviously the big thing that sticks out is just the Eagles' D 23 points versus Danucci. You have to say it like that, by the way.
I will not.
Yeah, and Tyler had a bad week overall. A lot of underperformance, but also not a whole lot of upside for a lot of his players too.
Mm-hmm.
When Hot Rod's only scoring 1 point for you, it's not like
backbone of your team. Your captain. Another thing that happened last week. We had Dylan's retirement party, and I could tell there were some skeptics out there thinking, Dylan's not retired. Like, his team can still make playoffs. There's no way that he's just, like, not playing fantasy anymore. And he followed that up by just not doing anything, which is what a retired person does. So, Dylan, enjoy, playing golf, sitting on a park bench places, because that's what you're going to do now with your life. Enjoy it.
Yeah, 51.56. Every week seems like he's trying to outdo himself for the worst performance in league history. He probably owns the record for number 1 and number 2 worst performances of all time. And it's unfortunate Jimmy G goes down. Even then, it's not good. Justin Jefferson has a down game. Mike Evans retired until he caught a touchdown. Yeah, it's not great. Other things from last week. Something we'll talk about more later, but Greg is pretty unstoppable at this point, picking up 136 points last week. Second only to Devin, I believe, in scoring. Absolutely demolished me on the back of Dalvin Cook, 47.6 yards. Not yards, points. Way more yards than that. Also, people like Jared Cook, who I'll talk more about later. Travis Kelce putting up his best week of the year. It's you have in the notes here, Cam, that he is in the driver's seat for the 1 seat. Yeah, he's in the driver's seat. He's in the pilot seat. He's in the captain's chair. Take whatever analogy you want. He's there.
Greg is in the cockpit. You love to see it.
He is.
Speaking of cockpits, Justin pulls out a win over Lassie. Big upset, if you ask me. So the question here is Justin's team competent? Sitting there at 4-4. Does he have the least amount of points for in the league? That is affirmative by 27 under Dylan, who didn't score as much as Justin scored last week in the 2 weeks prior to that for Dylan. So But the Mat Lab doesn't necessarily trust its comrade Justin. You look at the playoff simulations, and he has the second lowest odds of making it into playoffs, mostly because those take into account like your average score and performance. So, he's got the record to make some noise, but I don't know if he's got the team to back it up.
He scored 124 less points than me, and he has one more win. It's so sad. So sad. Yeah. Okay. Though. No. Yeah. So the long and the short of it is to answer your question. No. Let's get into talking about this week, Cam. Two good matchup of the week contenders this week. Ultimately, I think this one is probably the clear pick, though. And we have a rematch of the championship game from last season, two of the more decorated owners in our league's history. It's you versus Levi. We'll start out here talking about your side. Your RB situation is quite good on the surface, at least. Like you talked earlier, James Conner can just run right all over that Dallas front seven. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a good matchup against Carolina, but the Chiefs aren't exactly running the ball as of late, and he has more competition. In fact, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has rushed for a total of 14 times over the past 2 weeks. He got a touchdown that week to bail him out, but before that, hadn't scored a touchdown since week 1. Is still getting some protection through the air, although the yardage isn't really there either. But there's more potential for sure against Carolina. Other things for your team. Oh, yeah, the rest of your running back core is looking pretty good, too. Besides the fact that you're starting Jonathan Taylor over Justin Jackson right now, which I'm curious to see exactly why. With Eckler not on a timetable to return and Justin Jackson playing against Las Vegas, seems like a really strong contender to me over Jonathan Taylor versus a pretty good Baltimore defense.
It's definitely not to make Jonathan Taylor look more attractive in trade situations, I'll tell you that much.
Alrighty. Well, that makes more sense. Other notes on your team, DJ Moore may be the wide receiver 15 in PPR in the season, but he is, and forever will be after this last week, solely a garbage time production wide receiver. You can quote me on that one. Other things for your team here, you have an interesting Washington stack with Terry and the football team's defense going up against the G-Men in a game where they should be very well favored in there. So that's good for you. My last note for your team here, things that interested me or stuck out to me, Tom Brady is the QB5 on the season. If you had told this to me going into the season, I wouldn't have called you crazy, considering he's joining a much better offense this season. But seeing the way he played last year, I am at least somewhat surprised by that he's become like a must-start every single week at this point. He's going up against the Saints defense this week too, which is not unbeatable by any means. So some good stuff overall for your sides. Minus things like AJ Brown, who's not practicing, but
I don't think he's practiced a day that's not Friday this entire season.
Wow. Okay. Looking over to Levi's side, buys have kind of given him very little wiggle room this week. Losing Joe Mixon, Boston Scott, Darrell Henderson, Rieger, and Goddard. The only player on his bench that can play football currently is Alexander Madison, because Stafford's in the COVID protocol. So we'll see about that. So not a lot of wiggle room. Can't really make too many scathing remarks about his start sits at this point. There isn't a whole lot on the waivers I think are better than what he has. Some good things for him. CeeDee Lamb. Well, I shouldn't have started off with for him. Some wishful thinking things for him is that CeeDee Lamb does have big play upside this week against the Steelers. It's definitely possible, but not likely. He is starting Curtis Samuel this week, so he's looking to hopefully steal some of those touchdown opportunities, scoring opportunities from DJ Moore on your side, because those could be pretty big swings there. Overall, he's looking for a really high-scoring game, between the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons because he's starting both Drew Lock and Julio Jones. So both teams scoring a lot of points benefits them both in that way. And yeah, like we've talked about a few times now, he already has Devontae Adams, who's already put up over 12.5 points after just a quarter and a half. So good stuff on both sides for sure. You're heavily favored in the projections wise.
He doesn't have a kicker though, right? I don't think.
He does have a kicker. He is Jason Myers.
Yeah.
Your rosters are set, besides for the fact that you're going to play Justin Jackson. Once you sub in Justin Jackson for Jonathan Taylor, I'm liking your roster a lot more. And you're giving me more. You've given me more confidence because I didn't know that AJ Brown's missed that many practices this season.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna pick you to win this game this week, in a big spot, a game you really need to win.
Yeah. Let's just say Levi is my upset of the week.
I'm upset. Louder! I'm upset. Louder! I'm upset. Say it louder! I'm upset.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. I'm just trying something, dude. Putting some juju out in the universe.
That's the juju you want to put out into the universe? I think that's not what you want to do.
Moving on. The other matchup that we could have had for matchup of the week, because this one has some big playoff implications, is Devin versus Dylan. Both of them, I think Dylan's on the inside, Devin's on the outside looking in for playoff situation right now. But obviously things are very fluid, as you can see from my awesome playoff graphic. Another kind of interesting situation is Devin was the early season team that we were like, Devin's team should be doing a lot better than it is right now. And Dylan is the late season team that's like, Dylan's team is bad and he's doing bad, but he was doing good early in the season. So it's kind of, some mirror going on right there. As per usual, Devin goes as the Russ DK stack goes. And playing against Buffalo, that should go at least pretty good. Todd Gurley, Devin. Or Frankie. Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley. Our boy. Are you aware where he ranks among running backs right now?
I know he's been a running back one like the entire season. He's probably top 8 maybe at this point.
Yeah, he's the RB4 in standard.
Wow.
That absolutely blew me away. So I was going to make a comment about how Devin's running backs are kind of underwhelming with Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette, but only one of those is true. But we'll see if he can pull it off against Denver, who apparently is a bad matchup for running backs, so we'll see what happens. Will Michael Thomas come back? Lord knows Devin could use it. He's basically spent the entire season without his first-round pick. If you can get DK Metcalf, DeAndre Hopkins, and Michael Thomas as your core of your team going into the stretch run, Devin's team's going to be even scarier.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a scary consolation run.
Please, God. We also have Devin, because he's not currently starting Michael Thomas, starting both of the Arizona wide receivers, Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins, against Miami. Miami has a pretty good secondary, not as good against the running game. We'll see what happens there because Dylan has some stuff on the other side. And he's also got New England's defense against the Jets. So that's real good for Devin. But Dylan has New England's offense against the Jets because New England's entire offense is Cam Newton and Damian Harris, who are both starting for Dylan, because, as we all know, N'Keal Harry is a bum who is not good at football and also injured. But he also has Chase Edmonds, who should start with Kenyon Drake hurt, so maybe Dylan could get a competent player on his team for once in his life. So that would be good to see. He's also got Matt Breida on the other side of that Arizona-Miami game. So lots going on there for both sides. If it's a running game, it'll be good for Dylan. Passing game will be good for Devin.
Yeah.
Mike Evans. We've talked about him retiring many times. But he's only had over 55 yards in a game twice on the season. Yes, he has a buttload of touchdowns. But, dude, that is pretty unsustainable, especially with AB getting there. We'll see what that happens to the whole passing situation.
The problem is it's not unsustainable because he's just the red zone king. Like if they get to the red zone, they're targeting him. It is sustainable in a crazy way.
Yeah, but now they have Gronk who can catch touchdowns, AB
Yeah,
who can catch
that's true.
touchdowns. We'll see what happens. And finally, Dylan has Justin Jefferson, who has been excellent this season on the whole, but he's really only been good or like amazing in games where they get boat race the Vikings, and he's been bad in games where they are winning. And I don't anticipate Detroit boat racing the Vikings, so that's not a good sign for Dylan there. So I'm definitely picking Devin here, and Sleeper agrees right now.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing in Dylan's team any week. He's just how can you at this point? Like no matter what,
Yeah.
it's so rough. Does have Chase Edmonds though, who's the single most talented running back in the entire history of football. So
Look, talent doesn't matter if you're on Dylan's team. You're still going to be bad.
yeah,
That's
talent
just how
doesn't
it
matter
works.
as for being a running back in fantasy, and especially not on Dylan's team.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, let's move on here to talk about the next matchup. We have Logan versus Justin. And we'll start out here talking about Logan's side of the ball. My first note on Logan's team is that, dude, James Robinson is just every week, coming off a bye week, but every week he's just proving more and more so far this season that he is like the GOAT. There's just no one better at being like, he's too good. It's not fair.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he gets to play against Houston this week, which is just an excellent matchup. Looking for that to be really good for him, which will help pick up some of the slack that that's been Josh Jacobs ever since week 1 for the most part, and not a great matchup against the Chargers this week too.
Wait, Frankie, can I get in here real quick?
Yeah.
Just some breaking news, because this is the breaking news podcast.
Yes.
The Green Bay Packers just threw another touchdown. It wasn't to Devontae Adams. I know, you're shocked. It was actually a pretty good play that got a touchdown to Mercedes Lewis.
Oh,
And
okay.
to celebrate, him and Aaron Rodgers walked up to each other and shook hands. It was quite possibly the most awkward thing I've ever seen on a national football game.
I thought you were gonna tell me it was like incredibly high tea or something, but
No, they literally just walked up and shook hands like they were meeting each other for a business lunch.
one that they like didn't really want to be there for.
I guess. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is just uncomfortable around people like Mercedes Lewis. We'll see.
oh my god.
No, that are large and athletic, dude. What are you talking about?
Okay. I thought you were saying like he's taking some advice and some notes from his predecessor or something.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on. Another notes on Logan's team. Logan, we've talked about this a little bit about people wanting us to cover the Madden League in this fantasy in our podcast, which we might talk more about as the season progresses. I haven't really prepared anything for this podcast, but I know one thing that Logan is using our Madden League to manifest DJ Chark production, because it sure ain't happening in real football. But like I said, playing against Houston, this is another big week for the Chark Robinson stack to do some damage. Every week, the story for Logan is the story of the Steelers, Claypool and Juju, and also the Steelers D. That's a really killer combo against the Cowboys, unless they just run the ball the entire time, which is very possible, as you mentioned earlier. My last note for Logan's side is that he is playing Kyler versus Tua in a matchup that I would like to watch personally. Kyler coming off a bye is still the quarterback 3 on the season, and a tougher matchup, but it should be still very positive for him. Looking over to Justin's side of the ball here, I have a single note written, and Justin, I love you, man. I really do. And my note just says, "You fucking imbecile." And I say that with love, because Justin, okay, there's a rule in fantasy that is slightly more inside baseball, but if you've been playing fantasy for as long as all of us have, you should know to never start players who are playing on Thursday night in your flex spots if you're going to start them. There's just no reason to ever do that. It takes away some flexibility from your roster and making start decisions. Usually this doesn't come into play. It's kind of just a precaution, safety measure. But Justin started JaMychal Hasty, the running back for the San Francisco 49ers, in his flex spot. He only has 2 running backs on his roster who are playing football this week. Him and Melvin Gordon. Gio is in his roster spot, RB1 spot, and he's not playing football. So Justin has to pick up a running back from the waivers now if he wants to start a full roster. Come on,
Yay.
man. Because of that little amount of effort, it makes me not want to put any effort into analyzing his team. Currently projected at 83 points. Aaron Rodgers having a good half. I mean, he has positive things like Stephon Diggs against Seattle. It's a great matchup. And he's the number 5 receiver in PPR. Michael Gallup is a football player who exists and used to be good, but no longer is. Evan Ingram has a good opportunity to have a good week against Washington. He's still starting Dalton Schultz too. Oh my God, this is so bad.
Dude, when you have an opportunity to play 2 pass catchers of Ben DiNucci, you can't say no.
It's
right?
like
Especially against Pittsburgh.
It's just crazy to me that that oversight of not putting Hasty into his actual starting running back positions has made it so he can't start Darius Slayton. He can't start Preston Williams. He can't do anything. He's just stuck. You imbecile. I'm picking Logan.
All right. Yeah, Logan's going to lose because Justin has some magical voodoo on his side to make up for him having to miss the draft. Moving on. You, Frankie, versus Jake Logan. This one is a try-hard chalice matchup.
People are this try-hard. Bro, come on, man. Why are you doing this to everybody else?
Let's go. I'm pretty sure Jake hasn't lost yet this season. We'll have the producers fact check that later. Anyways, you, Frankie, this whole season, we've been like, dang. Frankie has hard wide receiver start-sit decisions because he has so many good wide receivers on his team. And you think that's just how the season's going to go. But then all of a sudden, Kenny Golladay gets hurt. Chris Godwin's hurt the entire season. And now you're starting Marvin Jones and Russell Gage. How the mighty have fallen. And then, another big thing for your team. We brought this up last week. How are the Dolphins on your team going to perform under Tua? And you really didn't get an answer from that because the Dolphins were dominating that game with their defense and special teams. So you still just kind of have to hope that was more of a fluke and that they can be good with Tua because they were both not good last week. And against Arizona, it's not a bad opportunity for both of them to score good points. But at least you have a very good running back situation right now with Gibson. Didn't he have his best week of the season against the Giants last? No, it was against Dallas. He had a decent week against Giants. I guess if you count 7.5 points, it's decent. Moving on. But then Kamara, who's awesome, is playing Tampa Bay. He scored 20 points against Tampa Bay week 1, but he only had 1.2 yards per carry. So we'll see if he's able to kind of make some magic happen again. You're probably going to need it because you are playing Jake Logan, who's one of the best teams in the league. However, Jake is having some rough stuff going on with buys. Travis Fulgham, who is excellent, is on bye. Miles Sanders, who's been hurt a lot, but is also, a first-round pick, is on bye. And Kareem Hunt, who has also been excellent, is on bye. Leaving Jake Logan to start Adrian Peterson and Phillip Lindsay. Yeesh. Adrian Peterson revenge game, though. Let's go.
2 teams removed.
Yeah, it's the only one people care about. But Jake does have Tyreek Hill, Deontay Johnson, and Allen Robinson, who are all very good fantasy wide receivers and can carry his team any week. So he'll need that to happen because his other wide receiver is John Brown, who's been hurt, is playing Seattle, which is nice, but you don't really know if you can trust that. And finally, once again, I am asking you, Jake, why are you starting Josh Allen? I understand Josh Allen is playing against Seattle, but Justin Herbert is playing against Las Vegas. Is that better? Probably. Josh Allen has not scored over 20 points since week 4. We're going into week 9. Justin Herbert has not scored under 20 points except for once this in his entire career. What are you doing? Yeah. So Jake needs to start Herbert and he will win, but if he starts Josh Allen, he will lose. That is my prediction.
I like that prediction because I don't think he's going to switch.
We all know he's not going to listen to this podcast before the game starts. So
Yeah, very true.
congrats on your win, Frankie.
Thank you very much. I went in a big spot versus the best team in the league. All right, moving on. Let's not kid myself any further. Greg versus JP is up next. Breaking news podcast. Greg already has 3 points from this game. Zero of which are from Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Oh dang.
Cam, on a podcast that we, at least I think both of us hold very near and dear to our hearts, the Around the NFL podcast mentioned today, this last week, I believe it was Greg Rosenthal mentioned it, that MVS is currently the ranked 116th out of 117 eligible receivers by PFF. It's not great.
Wait. That means he's bad.
Not
Why
good.
would Greg be starting him? Greg.
Yeah, but it's I can't blame him, but I see the logic, at least because when you look at his bye situation, injury situation with his bench, he currently only has one player on his bench who's going to play football this week, well maybe two. We'll see about Sammy Watkins, but Sammy Watkins not a surefire, so I understand that. Wanting to have some assurance there, although he started Valdez-Scantling in his flex, but we're going to move on. With Minshew, Hyde, and Williams all out, Mostert on IR, and AJ Green's on bye. So not a whole lot of options for Greg. So he has to start MVS and Randall Cobb, who's been fine. Has the upside plays, but not someone you can really rely on by any means. Other notes on this team: Jared Cook looks to continue his touchdown hot streak versus Tampa Bay. Very possible to continue with that. But let's say the rest of his roster, like outside of those like kind of gross starts, I mean, it's like really good. Deshaun Watson, David Johnson, Dalvin Cook, Tyler Lockett, Travis Kelce. I just think back to 3 weeks ago when I absolutely trashed this roster, and he's done nothing but score points ever since. So I can't, any week Greg has, number one scoring overall upside every single week in our league for sure, even with those gross starts. Looking over to JP's.
Wait, real quick about Greg. We have to make sure this is clear. It's real rough that Greg has all those bye week and injury stuff going on his bench, and we put in so many waiver claims, like none of them. But he doesn't have any fab, right? Oh, he has $180 of fab.
Jesus
put in
Christ.
0 waiver claims, and he's starting Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Greg.
You could have had Marvin Jones from me. Oh, wow, that's crazy. Moving on to JP's side. Hey, it's been a long time coming, but it might just finally be CM season. He's back, maybe? Practicing.
He's back.
He's back. We're believing it. CM season. When we all started this year, I mean, the CMC and chill strategy was like very common, popular for the 101. And it set people's rosters up to be really well. It allowed you to get that. Usually people would either then stretch as for Mahomes or Lamar Jackson pick, or maybe even like a George Kittle or Travis Kelce pick, which JP liked to do both of those. We know what happened to George Kittle. Not great. Wasn't playing for a while. Obviously, Mahomes is still doing well. He's the QB2 on the season, so no real complaints there. But so I lead all this into saying that JP's roster otherwise is slightly underwhelming, which is kind of, I guess, to be expected for a team that's 2-6. This man really likes backup running backs. He still is holding the means of production for the New England backfield, except for one running back who's actually producing, and Damian Harris. Um, but they're still both on his bench, which is just an insane thing to do. Ingram still seems to be questionable. He didn't practice on Thursday today, so he's looking to start Gus Bus again. So that's one backup running back. He has McKissick. That's a second backup running back he's starting. He has Zach Moss starting. That's a third backup running back he's starting. It's not great. Some better news for him though. Is that we've been trashing Gronk, rightfully so. It seems as though he's really found his groove a bit in Tampa, and by that I mean he's been catching touchdowns. That's the, but he's getting more yardage, more production overall. So, anyways, I can't trash Gronk this week. What can I say? My last note on his team is that both Laviska Shenault, not as much as Robbie Anderson, but they are both due for some touchdown regression. I feel like I talked about that with Robbie quite a bit. Not a great matchup for Robbie, but Laviska Shenault does have the best backup quarterback in the entire league now, the starting quarterback, and Jake Luton. So I'm expecting Laviska Shenault to be the wide receiver number 1. If it isn't DJ Chark, 1 and 2, and I think Jake's gonna take it just from that.
Good for Jake. He deserves it. Jake Luton making his team good again. Moving on, we have Tyler versus Lassie, and Tyler is one of the 6 teams that is currently inside the playoff picture and looking good, but this week does not look good for Tyler. Chris Carson and Calvin Ridley are both studs who have been mainstays on Tyler's team, and they are both legitimately questionable this week, and it's not good on Tyler's team after that. You have DeAndre Swift, who's a fine starter, but then he's starting Jerry Jeudy, who has not scored over 10 points except for 1 week on the season. Jimmy Graham, LaMichael Pirine, and Keelan Cole. All people that would be totally fine to be on our waivers at this point in the season. And that's who he's starting with Chris Carson and Calvin Ridley in his starting lineup. If both of them don't have to play, he has to play Devonta Freeman, Hayden Hurst. This is I guess he could kicker flex Hot Rod, but they're playing Baltimore, so I don't know if he wants to do that.
Cam, you're missing something. If Keelan Cole was on our waivers, he would have been the highest bid player of the week because he's going to be the wide receiver number 3 overall now.
My bad. Coming off a 1.7 point game. You're right. You're right. Yeah. So that's rough for Tyler. What's also rough is that he's playing against Aaron Jones, who in the first half has 8.8 points, which isn't, spectacular for Aaron Jones, but they are looking to be winning by a lot, the Packers, in the second half, so they're probably going to run a lot, and that's not great. He also gets started against Antonio Brown, who will be starting for Lassie this week, probably, because Lassie loves him some AB. And then Lassie's team also has Derrick Henry, Keenan Allen, and Adam Thielen. So if Tyler doesn't have Chris Carson and Calvin Ridley, this is going to be a bloodbath. But either way, he's fixing for a bruising on Tyler.
Yeah, it's I'll be honest, I haven't looked at this before. Lassie, I get that you're a man of the memes. But like this benching everybody nonsense.
That's
like,
putting it lightly.
My smooth brain can't look at this and like understand what's happening.
Yeah, Lassie's gonna win even with his just absolute deep fried roster.
Alrighty, and that's it for this week. Unless any of our live listeners have any questions for the podcast. Dylan just asked, is Craig better at waivers or Madden? I mean, he doesn't try at the waivers. So, like, is he bad. Like if I feel like being bad at the waivers means you're over like crazy overspending or crazy underspending. If you're not even trying. But I'm thinking about when he plays Madden. Is he trying when he plays in Madden? I think he is, and he's just terrible. So I think he's worse because he's actually trying Madden.
Look, for context, for everyone that doesn't know about our Madden franchise league, Greg, before his game last night, had thrown 33 interceptions going into week 9. Jameis Winston threw 33 interceptions over the entire season. The record in the NFL for interceptions thrown is 43. Greg is on pace to nearly double that. He's absolutely worse at Madden. I love you, Greg, but I beat him 55-14. That's mean.
It's not great.
Yeah.
Not great. Alrighty, let's
He has
wrap it
a
up.
deep shot-based offense with Drew Brees as his quarterback.
It's very true. I also love that when he plays, he always
Wait.
makes sure.
Yo, did Marquez Valdez-Scantling just catch a deep touchdown?
Nope, it's fake news. Fake news didn't happen. Don't believe
Old
it.
takes exposed.
Oh no, 52 yards, 1 reception, and a touchdown. All right, well, might as well just delete this podcast.
Run it back.
Cool. Run it back. Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Annual McCann Football Podcast. I have been Frankie.
I'm Cam.
We'll catch you all next week. Hey, Cam, maybe this is the week when we both win a game like in the same week together.